Welcome back to Kings. We are going to look at 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. I'll read through the Hebrew quickly and point out some issues that you may see in the text and give a couple of pointers for things that might be a little bit confusing. There's a couple issues in the text that no one really has a great handle on, so those might be really fun things to play around with. If you notice in 2 Kings, the end of chapter 2 of 2 Kings, after the part that we translated for last time, the fiery chariot, there's some really interesting stuff, including these two miracles back to back from verses 19 through 25 that begin with the bad water that Elisha makes good with the salt to prevent people from dying. And he does this by means of word, but also by action of the salt. And then there's the bald head stuff, which feel free to comment on that and discuss it in the forums this week. The bald head issue is an interesting one. I've given my 2 cents on this passage several times in class, in the Old Testament introductory class and so on, but I'm happy to talk about it again. But both of them show the power of this prophet, right? And how this prophet is the man of God, the Isha Elohim, the person of God, who is kind of this window through whom God's power and holiness work in the world for good and for ill. And then chapter 3, we have this really interesting story about the king of Moab, Mesha. When we have the Mesha stela, we have literally the king of Edom, the king of Moab's words about this event that he left for posterity, and he does talk about sacrificing to Chemosh and how Chemosh's God came and saved the day. The end of chapter 3 is fascinating for being one of the only texts in the Hebrew Bible that actually gives credit to a foreign god, although it doesn't mention the name of this foreign god, but it seems pretty clear that the great wrath is not against the Israelites by Yahweh, because it's referring to what this king of Moab was going to do. So in any event, lots of really interesting stuff to work through here theologically. Also Elisha's character here is really fascinating. Why do they stumble across Elisha in the wilderness? I think it makes sense that Elisha is in the wilderness like Elijah would have been, and just kind of happens to be there, although not very interested in helping the kings, but then ends up actually helping the kings, that is Jehoshaphat, and then also the new king Jehoram of the northern kingdom, and then the king of Edom, who seems to be a vassal, really. So all to say, lots of interesting stuff to talk about there, and also the power of music it's kind of like Elisha's spinach, like Popeye the Sailor Man. Gets some music going and he just goes nuts. But then chapter 4, we begin with the story that we'll look at today. Chapter 4 is the issue of what we're going to be talking about today, verses 1 through 7, is definitely connected to the rest of chapter 4 and into chapter 5. So pay close attention to the kind of different types of miracles that you see here, and also compared to the miracles that you see in chapter 3 and at the end of chapter 2 for Elisha. And then chapter 5 kind of builds on these. I think you can see them, these as part of a larger cycle they've been worked on, but also definitely pay attention to chapter 4 verses 8 through 37, which isn't our focus text for today. It's kind of too long, but read it in the English carefully, and there might be some interesting things for you to look at in the Hebrew, but it is a beautiful story, really well told, and one of the best, I think, short stories that we have in Hebrew narrative. And then there's death in the pot, and then the feeding of 100 men, which definitely looks like a miracle that you've seen before. So all to say, we'll kind of build on these as we go into the next 2 weeks as well. We'll look at Naaman next week, and at the miracle of sight and the fiery chariots. Again, they reappear in 2 Kings 6. So back to this. I'll read through the Hebrew and give some pointers here. So we'll start. I'll read up to let's see. I'll read to Elisha here. Start. Okay, so V'isha achat min shei b'nei ha-navi'im tza'aka el Elisha. So going back to the beginning, V'isha, the woman, and then well, and a woman, or now a woman, and then one, a particular woman, right? So one can be kind of function in a way as a focusing word here. Focuses on this one woman, and I would say now because remember we have the vav and then followed by the noun. The subject here comes first. So this breaks our syntax or our word order that we expect. We expect to see a verb first. We see this character emerge here. So this is starting a new story. This is a very big difference from the story that existed before this in chapter 3 with the king of Moab. So in any event, now there was a woman. One woman. Now there was this one woman. And then min. So this is from, and then nasha or neshe, this would be a woman. This is the plural from isha, right? So now one woman from the women of B'nai Hanavi'im, the sons of the prophets, quite literally, but also, as I've said before, the prophetic members, the prophetic people. B'nai, sons, can be used often like B'nai Yisrael, the sons of Israel, which clearly includes women. B'nai Evan is how you say pebbles in ancient Israel. Little bits of rock, sons of rock. They're not sons. They're not genealogically related to the rocks. They're little pieces that represent a larger type. And of course, this is inflected for gender in ancient Israelite Hebrew, but it doesn't necessarily mean gender. So this is often translated as a wife of one of the sons of the prophets, and you'll notice that in your NRSV it says it says Hebrew, the sons of the prophets. So now the wife of a member of the sons of the prophets. It's really interesting here, though, that if you look at this Hebrew, it's a woman, one from the women of the company of the prophets, which suggests that maybe this is a prophet too. We know that there were women prophets in ancient Israel. Huldah is a prophetess. We know that Isaiah's wife is a prophet. She's referred to as a prophet and not a wife of a prophet. She's referred to as a prophet. So this is often translated as wife. Isha doesn't have to mean wife. It means woman. So all to say that there's some gender issues here that may be unresolved. They're definitely at a later date. There was a redaction of the biblical text, which de-emphasized the role of female prophetesses, although they didn't take out all of them, right? Deborah's still there, Huldah is still there, but the fact that Isaiah's wife is anonymous suggests that something happened there. So in any event, we don't know exactly why, but there was a gender-specific revision to the Bible, I think, and we are studying in the wake of that. But in any event, all to say, if you ask me, this might be a prophetess here. But in any event, and then Tza'aka, whoever this is, cries out, right? And this is that verb tza'ak, to cry out. This is called perfect third feminine singular. Here's our ending. And then Elisha, she cried out to Elijah. Lemor, saying, Avdecha, you, servant of you, right? The servant is in construct to you. So your servant, and then Ishi, man, and then E of me, which is the way to say in Hebrew, my husband. This is why everyone says that she's the wife of one of the companies of the prophet. But I mean, married couples could have been part of this, I guess. I don't know. We know very little about how these people actually work. So in any event, Ishi, husband of me, and then mate, died. Mate, this is from Mut. It's a middle week. This is just the way that this is written in the call perfect third masculine singular form. He died. So mate. And then ata, now you. And then yadata, from our root yada, our second masculine singular ending ta, no. You yourself, no. And I say you yourself because the subject comes here, and it's redundant because it's included in this information here at the end of the verb, right? So now you yourself know, ki, that, and then avdecha, your servant. Here's our zak hef katon. Now you yourself know that your servant, so my husband is dead, you yourself know that your servant, that is him, so this guy's also a servant, right? Haya was, Yare, a fearer or feared. This is the adjectival form, but it could function, I guess, in as a call perfect. But he was a fearer et Adonai, of Yahweh. Your servant was a fearer of Yahweh. V'ha noshe. Here's a Zarkef Katon, so we'll stop there. And the noshe, this is a participle, call, active participle, O, and then it should be A along E class vowel here, but you have a third hey, which swallows that vowel a little bit. But so here we still have our holum over our first radical. So, and the creditor, or the one who has taken the debt. So this is much too big of a topic to get into right now, but maybe somebody wants to look into this for the notes in the forum. But debts and credits work in an interesting way in the ancient world that don't quite align with how we work with it. So that is today. But so this is the person who has given out the debt, or has taken the debt, created the debt, really, by lending something. This is a word that doesn't really mean a debtor or a creditor in ancient Hebrew. You should look up the root for this and see what it really means. It has taken on a secondary meaning of creditor. That is someone who has created a debt by giving out a loan. They don't like these people in ancient Israel. You should look through like what texts this occurs in, and I challenge you to find one where anyone called this is good, or there's something good happening there. The Bible, the biblical text, hates debt. And it's no coincidence that Jesus says, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." The creation of debts is seen as a pretty horrific thing throughout the Bible. So, in any event, this person is being set up is not a good person, right? There's this person who has taken advantage in some way of this woman. So. Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant, this guy, feared the Lord, or was a fearer of Yahweh. And now the creditor, ba, has come. This could be a call participle, active participle, masculine singular form, or it could also be a call perfect 3ms. It's the same for this middle week verb bo, this exact same form, but you can go with participle because you're going to have lakach. So this is to take. I don't know why it's, so to, this is like from lakach, right? This is the lamed, and then it just kind of swallows up the actual lamed from the root. So kachat. So it's to take. So you have a kind of a double lamed here. The lamed got stuck on. This is the preposition to for our infinitive construct form, and so it's to take. So, and the creditor came to take. We know, by the way, it's a call infinitive construct form because of this at ending here. It came to take et shenei, came to take the two yaladai, two of my children, lo, to him. This guy came to take my two kids, la avadim, to be slaves, to be servants. This is a big bummer for her, not only because her children would be mistreated and turned into the property of someone else, which of course is traumatic for all involved and against every notion of human rights that has existed in that we could point to. Even in ancient Israel, this was understood to be a terrible and traumatic thing. Even though the laws allowed for this. But nonetheless, on top of that, this is also her economic security now that her husband's dead. She had sons that could help her, but now she's going to be left all alone, which as we know, in the ancient world was a recipe for death for widows. So this is just horrible on all fronts. So this creditor guy looks like a good guy. Now, verse 2, Vayomer Elaha Elisha, ma e'eseh lach. And I'll stop there because the Zakif Katon is here. And he said to her, Elisha, this is our subject, goes all the way back to here. Remember, a lot of times the subject either is second or third in the sentence. So, and Elisha said to her, this is the her, third feminine singular object suffix here, Ma, what? E'eseh, what am I going to do? This is asa, and here's the first common singular prefix here to asa in the call imperfect form. Got weird vowels here because of our first ayin, which is going to mess with our vowels here. But yeah, this is just a call imperfect. What am I going to do to you? And then, but you might notice that, by the way, recognize that because that same exact structure just occurred in 2 Kings 2 that we translated last week. What am I going to do for you? As in, what can I do for you? Like, what do you want? So this is an interesting thing for Elisha to ask her. It seems pretty obvious that she wants money to pay the debt or something. He's not going to work on those same terms. Elisha's going to do something a little different here. So he says, Hagidi li. So this is from Nagad, which means this is not a middle week here. This is the Hiphil form. This is a Hiphil in the front there, and that's an infixed Hirik Yod. That's part of the Hiphil form. It has an E ending because this is a second feminine singular. This is really a imperative here, but this is a Hiphil imperative. We got that ha beginning. Remember ha? No one expects the Hiphil imperative. So here's the ha beginning for a Hiphil imperative. This is nagad. Whenever you see a gimel and a dalet hanging out together, especially gimel with a little rolled up noon inside the dagesh there, right? That's nagad, which means to declare or report or tell. And this is the Hiphil imperative form, second feminine singular. So it's tell or declare. Tell li to me. Tell me. Ma, what? Yesh lechi. What is there? What, and yesh is, what is there, what exists, what have, and then lachi, to, and then ki. Ki means like what or for. Here's a really interesting thing about this passage. It's fascinating. Whenever you are using a Bible software and you see these parentheses here, this is lach afterwards, which would be to you. So what is there to you? That would make a whole lot of sense. What do you have? And then this little bit ends. Here's the athnach. I'll keep going a little bit. By it. In the house. So what is there to you in the house? That would all make lots of sense. This in the parentheses here is what's called a kativ kare problem. Kativ means written, kare means read aloud. Here's what's written, and whenever you see these parentheses, that means that's what you actually say out loud. This preserves an alternative vocalization, an alternative tradition in ancient Israelite Hebrew. So this is a different textual manuscript tradition, and this is what everyone would say out loud, like in the synagogue when this is read. So this is then a strange form here, lechi, which really must mean to you, and this must be the second feminine singular form here, the object suffix. Now what's strange is that this occurs in Aramaic. This is kind of an Aramaic-ish form, but that would be the second feminine plural. A form of this for an object suffix. So this is a strange thing. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a grammarian at the University of Texas, Nama Pat-El, and she has written an article on Israeli and Hebrew. You can find it in Vetus Testamentum if you look on our ATLA database. And Israeli and Hebrew is the name of her article, and she lines out what she thinks is like some interesting bits of northern Israelite Hebrew and the grammar of it, and that she thinks this is the way that they said second feminine singular endings. So really interesting. Again, we have a Judahite text. It's been edited for us by Judahite Southerners, and this is the way that you'd say lach is how you'd say to you to a woman in Judean Hebrew. Israel, so it's the southern Hebrew, but ancient northern Hebrew would be lachi. So anyway, all to say, what is there to you in the house? What do you got in the house? So you might, if you were a creditor or talking about having issues with the creditor and someone says to you, what do you got in the house? You might be thinking, what can I use as collateral? What can I use to get a new loan? What could I use to pay this off? What can I give, besides my kids, right? What do you got in the house? And then va tomer, and this is, and she said, this looks a little bit like you will say. right? But this is the vayiktol form of a third feminine singular, right? Third feminine singular, call vav consecutive, or call vayiktol form. Here's our prefix for the third feminine singular. It looks a lot like a second person because it is a second person prefix. It's also the third feminine singular prefix. So vatomer, and she said, ein, there is not, le shifchatcha, to your servant. This is like female servant. And there is nothing to your female servant. Kol bavayat, in all the house. All in the house. Ki'im, now ki means for, im means if. You put those together, it always means except for, or unless, except for. There's nothing in the house except for. Asuch. The root such means to pour out. Asuch, this is a noun formed by adding an aleph to the beginning, which is not terribly common, but it exists. So this is a noun form, which means like a pouring thing. Pot, a jug, something like that. A pouring thing of shemen, of oil. That's all she's got in the house is one thing of oil, which she needs. And this connects here, of course, to the story that we translated in 1 Kings 17 with the widow at Zarephath. So what's Elisha going to do? Elisha going to do, as opposed to Elijah. So Vayomer Lechi, and he said, Lechi, go. This is kind of like halak, but this is a second feminine singular. This is really a call imperative, second feminine singular form. From halak, the hay falls off. So lechi, go. Sha'ali. Remember the feminine imperative form ends this hirak yod here. So again, go. Sha'ali, ask. Lach. Here we get the typical second feminine singular object suffix. Go and ask for yourself kelim, vessels, pots, things to hold stuff in. Min hachutz, from the outside, but really it means like it would be like from the street, from the neighborhood. Me'et, from with. Kol, all. Shechen ki. This is from Shekan, like Shekinah glory, right? Which doesn't actually occur in the Old Testament. The idea of Shekinah glory, right? That's a medieval Hebrew mystical idea, so much later than the Bible. But the Shekan would be the tabernacle, the Mishkan, the dwelling place of God, right? That's the idea for the tabernacle. And of course, in the New Testament, John 1, this is referred to in the Greek form for tabernacling or dwelling among us in John 1. The word took on flesh and dwelt among us. So here's the shekan, to dwell, and then ki, and this is again that strange northern form of a feminine, second feminine singular object suffix. So all the ones who dwell, you, all your dwellers, all your neighbors. This is one way to say who lives near you. And then you see this is the kareh, the read aloud part. This is the kativ, the written part. So whenever you see these parentheses, that's telling you that no one says this word that comes before the parentheses. They all say this instead, what's in the parentheses. So shekin yich, this is another way to say from shekan, but then also this yich ending. This is the cha, right? The second feminine singular object suffix with your blouse buttons, I think we called them. But in any event, and as opposed to the necktie, the second masculine singular ending, the cha, the long comments inside the final form kaf. Okay, so, and then kelim, vessels, reikim, empty vessels. Al, and this is, remember, there's two ways to say no or not, lo and al. So lo is, never, ever, ever do that. Al is don't now. So al tam iti. This is a second person here, feminine, singular. And what's our vowel underneath our performative here? Our vowel underneath our performative. I can tell it's feminine, by the way, because that e ending. Our vowel underneath it is an A-class vowel, patak, short A-class vowel. That's a hiffle marker, right? So I'm going to say this infixed hirak yod and say, oh yes, hiffle. All right, so my root then is mem, ayin, and tet. And that root means, if you look it up in BDB or something, it means to be small. So hiffle means to make small. So don't make it small. That is, don't make it few. Don't collect just a few of these things. Get these vessels and get as many of these things as you possibly can. Don't make it few. Vat, and she went, This right here is just a call perfect, second feminine singular. This is, the consecutive here. And she went. I'm sorry. This is, I'm trying to move quickly here. This is instead of a call, like a vayikol, a vav consecutive. Remember, this is, so Elisha starts the story in the future. Go do these things with imperatives. So laki, shali, go and ask, and don't, make it few. And then he continues this future story. This is one of those chains of verbs. You start with this imperative, go do this, and then do that, and then do that, and then do that. And so here we have a vav plus a called perfect, and this is that future consecutive. This is the anti-vayikol, right? This is where we started with this chain of imperatives. We're telling a story about what you're going to do into the future. Here's our future storytelling mode. So, and you go. This is the second feminine singular ending here, and you will go and enter, and sagart and shut. This is again our second feminine singular ending, and you will shut ha delet. It's sort of like dalet, right? This is the same word as dalet, right? The delet, the door, and you will shut the door. Ba, and so dalet looks a little bit like a door here, right? So ba'adech, behind you, va'ad baniyech, and behind the sons of you. You're behind your sons. Vai yatzakt, and you will yatzak, which means pour, and you will kind of pour or throw, like drop something in some ways too. But yeah, you will pour upon all the vessels, these, ha-ela. Kol ha-kelim ha-ela. So you'll pour upon all these vessels, pour into them, all the vessels might be a way to say it too, ha-male, and the full one. This is an adjective. It can also be a verb, mala, to fill, but here it's the adjectival form. And the full one, ta-si-i. This comes from nasa, to pull out or to set out. Here's the hifel marker right here, and an infixed hirek yod. The noon, sorry, we put a beginning on it, and it curled up and jumped in there. And the full one, you will pull it out or set it aside. Put it. Make it go on a journey. Nasa can also mean to go on a journey. You make it go on a journey. The full one. Set aside the full one. Make it go out. And so, in other words, you set up a little kind of assembly line here. And so then, vatelech me ito, and you will go. Again, we're in the future storytelling mode. We were in the future storytelling mode up to this point here, and this is the end of Elisha's discourse. And so 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 5 begins, we're back to the story here. Here's the vayikol again. Vatelech, and she went. Here's our second marker, the second person in the call, imperfect, our imperfect markers, but also third feminine singular. So here it is in the third feminine singular form. Vatelech, and she went from halach, right? We lost our first hey. Me ito, from with him, and she went from next to him, or whatever, she left the conversation. Vatis gor, and she. This is again she. This is still the vayikol form here, vav consecutive, and she shut sagar, and she shut the door, ha delet, just like he said. She's following directions. Ba'adah, behind her. This is the third feminine singular object suffix. Don't forget her, the little mapik in the hey. Doesn't always exist, but doesn't always occur, but much of the time it does. Va'ad, and behind baneha, behind her sons. Haim, they, third person masculine plural objects suffix or independent suffix here, and they magishim, from nagash. Here's the noon rolled up there. This is a participle. We have our noun ending, im. We have a meme beginning. We have a class vowel here, so this is a hiphil participle. And they approached from Nagash, and they came near eleha, to her. Vahi, and she, meitzaket. And then we see right over here, this is another Ketiv Kare issue, perhaps suggesting another northern-southern pronunciation difference here, motzeket. This would be a good version of the hiphil participle for first yods. Make it into a mo. That's what happens with hiphil participles. This is a strange form here. This probably was a northern form here. But anyway, and she was pouring. So she was pouring, and the guys are bringing the vessels. Her sons are bringing the vessels to her. All right, so verse 6. Vayahi kim lot ha-kelim. And it happened as, or when, they were full. This is a call infinitive construct. As filling the vessels, as the vessels were filling, or were full, Vatomer, she said, El Bana, to the son of her, to her son, Hagisha, and this here, this is a modal thing. Ha, no one expects the hiphil imperative. And this is from Nagash, which is we saw up here earlier, from Magishim. Make, approach, or bring to me, Eli, bring to me, od, still, or another, kili, vessel. Bring me another vessel. So when it starts to run out, she's like, quick, come over here. So Vayomer, Eleha, and she said, and he said to her, Ein od keli. No, there are none still vessels. There are no more vessels. Vaya amod hashemen. And then here's just a call. I know that there's a hiphil underneath here, but it's the first ayin here. And it stood, the oil. You could say stood still. It stops flowing, the oil. Va tavo va taged laish ha Elohim. So, and she came from Bo, and she nagaded or reported. This is a hiphil. The A-class fell underneath here. This is from nagad, which is always in the hiphil, to tell. And she came and she told to the Ishel ha-Elohim, the man of God. Vayomer lachi, and he said, go. This is a command here, the hiphil imperative. I'm sorry, a call imperative for a halak. Go, and then mikri, sell et hashemen, sell the oil. So this is where you're going to get the money from, not from money itself, but you're going to sell this oil or use the oil to pay back the debt. Va shalmi, and make whole or something. This is again a PL. This is another imperative here, a PL, because shalom, to be peaceful or make peace, that occurs in the PL, that meaning of shalom. And here we have in the lamed our duplicated second radical. So, and make peace. Et nish ye he. Here again, that second feminine singular object suffix that's strange to the northern kingdom. The debts of you, again, take a look at that word, doesn't really mean debts. And here's, again, the Ketiv Kare issue. This is kind of correct from a Judean perspective. And make peace of your debts, or make whole your debts. Va'at, and you, benechi, and your sons, here again, this other way of saying your sons of you. Tihi, this is from chaya, which means to live, not haya, which means to be. So this is, and you will live, ba notar, in the, or with the notar. This comes from yatar, or yeter. Yeter, to remain over. Also the word in ancient Hebrew for prophet. Not profit like Elisha the prophet. Profit like what's left over when you're done with your business. The leftover, the excess, the profit. There's a lot here to say about excess and profiting off of things, and crediting and debting, and the power of the man of God here, and the role of life and death, and the relationship between this and 1 Kings 17. A lot to talk about this week, a really rich text. Thanks for sticking with me here, and I will look forward to connecting with you all at the end of the week on one of my favorite texts, the Naaman text, and then we got one of my other favorite texts after that, 2 Kings 7.